Phill Drobnick, national team director. Mike Gulenchyn, he's our national team trainer. Mike's with TCO Training House. Phil's going to talk on-ice training. Mike will talk off-ice training, and I'll hand it over.
And that's a wrap on our on our show for today. Thanks everyone for joining. No, thanks for everyone for having some patience with us to navigate through this. As mentioned, this is I'm Phill Drobnick, and I'm here with Mike Gulenchyn, who is our head of our off-ice training for USA Curling. I'm our national team director. My role is really to oversee all of our athletes and our coaches that are within our national team program. From a day-to-day basis, I'm on the ice with our athletes, running practices, traveling to events with them, working with our coaches at events, also at World Championships, serving as the national coach at all of our World Championships, men's, women's, and mixed doubles, working with our junior national coaches as well to prepare them for the junior national championships. Experiences started coaching back in 2006, and had some successes in the junior level with Chris Plies and Matt Hamilton were the first couple athletes that I coached, and won a junior world championship and bronze medal with them, and then moved through and coached at the 2010 games, 2018 and 2022, and took on a role with USA Curling in 2011 as one of the junior national coaches, and kind of a transitioned from as a junior national coach to a coach of a national team, and then to the latest role back in, kind of came into this position back in 2019 of national team director. It's changed titles a couple times, but pretty much same duties. So today we're going to talk about two things in particular on on-ice training, and really it's going to be the delivery and sweeping. And we're going to have slides about what the delivery is about and the components that we really look at within a delivery. But more importantly, I want to talk about what our teams are practicing, and what time of the season teams are practicing their technical work and really putting focus on that. And then when we transition into our team systems, and then it's once we get to the mid-season and championship season, it's just refining what we're doing and making sure that we're consistent and ready to play in championships. So we break the delivery down into 4 components, which is your initial setup and your hack, your drive from the hack, your forward slide, and the final delivery of the stone. And the reasons we do these so we can really look at our athletes and score where they're at. Mark Lazard does a great job with our athletes on the technical side, getting our videotape analysis of all of our athletes, so we're able to have really a history where we're able to go back. And I know Andrew was here, and we've got video of Andrew from 2015 till now of his delivery, and Mark can go through and analyze some of that, and all the rest of the national coaches can look at their athletes in particular as to how they're doing it with these components. And when we go into the initial setup and the hack, and you can see here in Matt's delivery there in particular, the components are your stance, your rock alignment, where your hips are, and then where your foot is in the hack. Those are kind of the things we're looking at when we're trying to decide if we're going to make adjustments, what someone's doing. But more importantly, when we're talking about the delivery, there's multiple ways to do everything that we do. And something that we've really been working with our national team is how each one of our athletes on our team throws the rock, and to try to make them throw the rock consistently throughout. So if we have 4 players on a team, really putting them on a videotape, watching the trajectory that their stone comes down the ice, where's their break point, and trying to get them all aligned so that they're throwing the rock the same. So that it takes out it just takes out the variables if everyone's rock's going down the path the same way, and it makes it much easier for someone who's skipping to be able to call line on that if you're able to give everyone on the team the same broom. So that's initial setup in the hack. The drive from the hack is kind of your first movement, your pullback of the rock, and then the backward movement of the sliding foot. And that's really, yes.
The rock alignment, it's interesting. It's come up on, if you watch the Canadian curling this year with David Murdoch having gone over. I had one of my juniors go up and go to the University of Alberta, and they switched from bringing the rock, setting it up in your hack foot, to bringing it under your shoulder, moving it across. And Kevin Martin's very much a proponent of that. And David Murdoch, though, is, my understanding in the camps that he has already had with the top athletes, is switching them back to more to the hack foot, more center of the body. What is the USA's position on that? You know,
Right now we're in line more so with what David's teaching and keeping our foot in the center of the hack. There is multiple times we know that there's 2 ways to get to a particular spot. And if we can get our athletes close to being on the same line and being able to get through the stone, as we know, when we're playing in a league play, it's much different than what the kind of the ice conditions our athletes are playing on. And we really are focusing on making sure that they're lined up on their foot, and we're driving through the stone with a finish. And we think that we can do that consistently. We especially, you'll see in Mark's slide and a couple of the slides that we show that and I don't think it's a major difference, but we do think that there's 2 paths that you can get to it. And I know one thing Kevin talked about in particular in that podcast is that everyone has to have that rock going down that same path in order to know what the line is to get to that spot. But, you know, as you play on arena ice, we know a lot of times with how the ice conditions are, there's a lot of times 2 ways to get to that spot. It could be, once you get to the outside of the 12-foot, a rock can curl to the side of the 4-foot, or you can put it on the edge of the 8-foot and a rock can curl to the side of the 4-foot.
Well, as a coach, I'm really glad to hear that, because I've always felt that watching that rock come in a straight line at me rather than having it move across and then the body get behind, right, was always much more difficult to make sure everybody did it the right way.
Yeah, it is. At least I think that's what I actually had a conversation with Mark today on this, and earlier this morning, because we had listened to the podcast. And yeah, I think that you know, obviously Kevin has some strong opinions, and I don't think he kind of dove into them fully into the podcast, at least, you know, from the pieces that I listened to. But David is definitely on to making that change with the CCA. So drive from the hack, the first movement, the pullback of the rock, and the backward movement, as I talked about, of the sliding foot. But you know, I want to go back to some of what we talked about with practice, and you know, in particular with the drive from the hack and the forward slide. Some of the things with our national team and with our athletes, what we're working on is that, you know, we want to make sure that when we use short broom, that they're sliding and they're coming out at the broom the same way, and that we're getting that rock down. So we're matching up where the break point is of everyone's rock. We're matching up rotations, because as we said, we want to try to get as similar as we can for each athlete to get the stone down the ice. So if we can have the same amount of rotations, if we can find the same break point, it just makes things that much easier for the skip as it's coming down. And as mentioned, the components in the slide is the the forward slide as the rock is coming out, the timing, you know, where your foot is, the forward movement of that sliding foot, and then the balance. And the balance, obviously, as that timing comes under your body, is definitely a very important piece. And that's where we see a lot of our athletes bring that foot over too fast and they'll throw our delivery off. And if we bring that foot over, if we drag on bringing that foot over, you'll hang out and it'll cause you to go offline as well. And then the final delivery of the stone is in our body, the line of delivery, the stone line of delivery, the drift, the body and arm position, clockwise release, clockwise release, the forward extension, and the hand position. With our elite athletes that are playing on slam ice on a continuous basis, we definitely are really working on finishing through the middle of the stone and getting that rock going straight down that sheet and getting, you know, a lot of teams are focusing on 5 to 6 rotations on that stone to make sure that it runs for that first half of the sheet, and then it hits that break point, and then it catches the rotation and it starts the curl. So it's really something that we spend a lot of time on the practice sessions that I work on with our athletes. We'll work on our release, and really in particular when I get a couple of athletes or if I get a full team that I'm working on all the way through the season. So early in the season, we're getting them on camera, we're getting alignment, but then mid-season, we're checking in to make sure our rock's still curling to the same spot. So if I'm throwing an out-turn draw on the edge of the 8-foot with 5 rotations, are my rocks still curling to the same spot that my other 3 teammates are? And it's a great drill. It's easy for anyone to be able to do. Is, you know, set up your broom, set up where your break point is once the rock starts to make its curl, and then see where it finishes. And
So how would you explain the difference between a forward extension and a push?
yeah, so it's through the middle of the stone, right? Like a forward extension. The thing I want people to remember when they're doing that is it's not an outward motion to get the rock to be going sideways. We're trying to get all of the energy that we have from our hips, through our body, through our arm, and extend it right through the middle of the stone. Make sense? I think we can see the laser on here. This is Mark Fenner sliding out, as you can see, laser staying right in the middle and putting that finish with the rotation on the stone. This is something that all of our teams are doing in July, in August, when they're getting their videotape analysis, trying to align that and make sure that everyone's coming out the same. Can see the side version of it, this is Marius in particular, of his pullback and kicking through. So just so you can see the side version of it. And then we did a biomechanics. Yeah, that's
so
a good
the question was, do you adjust the number of rotations depending on the ice? Always the same number of rotations.
Yeah, that's a good question. And each team does it slightly differently, I'll say. There are teams out there that I know particular, some of our veteran teams will adjust the amount of rotation that they're putting on stones if they get on club ice or if they get on straighter ice. And we also have teams that will just consistently always throw their same way. And the way they adjust is they'll instead of throwing a normal takeout at a 9.5 hog to hog or a 10.5 hog to hog, they'll bring that down and they'll start throwing an 11.5 or 12.5. So a lot of that is really within a team on what they're most comfortable with, what their coach wants them to do, and what they feel works best for where they're at. And like I said, a lot of our veteran teams definitely will change the number of rotations that they put on. We did a work with TCO in August. We had 4 athletes that took part in a biomechanics breakdown of the delivery. We have yet to get results on this. This is just kind of a show of what we did, but we had 10 high-speed cameras, a markerless motion capture system, and just really trying to get like what the delivery looks like through the biomechanics, what muscles, what's being used, you know, where can Mike take this and build off of this in his, within his fitness programming? You want to touch?
Anybody else is unnerved by the skeleton as I am?
Good stop. That's what I was gonna say. It's Halloween, right? So Michael Kiley's our biomechanist, and Garrett, they came down to our ice surface in Chaska in probably it was August we were down there. Yeah. Just to kind of see what we could capture at this point. So basically, you know, on the delivery, if you look at the skeletal image, basically, you know, you can see the shin angle. We're looking at the hip, the joint angles. You know, what is that going to do to the body over a period of time? You know, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the common injuries of the delivery and also with the sweeping. So, I mean, this plays into what we're doing off ice also. So, a lot of wear and tear on that slide or the leg that is basically in an isometric hold throughout that time of competition and competing. So, but still have a lot.
Yeah, it's just it's exciting to be able to have TCO as a part of that and to bring it in, and their excitement in working with the athletes. I think Gabby might have been there that day. I mean, they were just really he was just really excited to be able to go back and analyze what he could find. So, you know, we did a bunch of sweeping and deliveries, went through accidentally breaking a couple brooms because we were sweeping so hard, but it was yeah, but it was a fun day with them, and you know, glad to have that partnership with them. Next, we're gonna go into sweeping, and you know, there's the components to sweeping to consider, and I'll go over these quickly. Is body position, which is key to our athletes, and when they're sweeping, the hand position on the broom, their footwork, the stroke. The length of the stroke is something that if you watch someone curling in league, or even if you watch someone that's playing in games, you can watch their stroke position or the stroke length. And if we're starting to see athletes get really long strokes, we're wasting energy, right? Like the running surface of the rock is only so long, and we only have to cover that running surface. So that's something that we really key in on when we're videotaping our athletes in sweeping. Pressure, frequency, SPI, weight distribution, top elbow position, stamina, judging skill, and communication skill. The judging skill is something that comes with practice. And I think for a long time in our game, and I know Dean was a little bit ahead of his time on this, but for a long time in our game, people really weren't practicing sweeping. I mean, you wouldn't go down to the club and see people just sweeping rocks up and down the sheet, right? Like they're throwing rocks up and down the sheet, and they throw 2 and they sweep 6. So, and obviously there's a skip and a third, but so we've really put an emphasis on practicing sweeping. And we have our athletes that we're running sessions with, that I'll run sessions with, that we're sweeping in every practice session. If I did a practice session with Tara the other day, and she's throwing and she's sweeping. She's throwing and she's sweeping. And you know, other athletes that I'm doing it with, we'll just do a sweeping session where, you know, we'll throw a rock, and halfway down the sheet, they're going full on, and sweeping for the entire length of the sheet from halfway to stop. Wait 30 seconds, halfway to stop. So we get endurance with sweeping. And we're finally figuring out how important it is with body position and making sure that the brush head is in the right spot, and then in particular practicing that to make sure it's in the right spot all the time, and make sure their body angle's in the right spot all the time. So sure.
So you just covered it on that last one. I didn't see broom head in the right spot. I think
yes,
for the national teams, probably having the broom in front of where the rock is going isn't that big of a deal. But for myself, coaching club curlers and juniors, lots of times they're going like the Dickens, but it's not in front of the rock, and not doing totally squat. So I just suggest coaches really focus on that as number one, that they're in front of the rock.
Absolutely. At any club level, is making sure your broom is in front of that running surface. And, you know, we'll get into this with the next video that we go into, but it is factual that you can hold a rock straight and you can make a rock curl. Yeah, so, you know, whether everyone can do it, you know, is going to be up to each individual person. But I will tell you, if you can put your broom head in the right position and you can get power onto your, get all of your energy and your weight onto your broom, you can make that rock curl and you can make that rock run straight. And that's something that we've seen in a number of studies that have been done. But I'm going to take you to the video here, and in particular from our camp that we did, and we did some sweep testing, and this is just showing you the positions, just showing you that you are able to make the rock curl, which is not a surprise. We see if you watch any high level curling, every one of the teams is sweeping to make it to curl, and they're sweeping to make it go straight. So this first one here is Corey. And this is knifing. This is what we call knifing, where he's taking his broom head and he's turning it.
Narrow side.
Yep, narrow side. That was what I'm looking for. Narrow side, and really trying to hit the outside edge of that rock and drive through that running surface to make it curl. And I'll pause it quick just to explain. So this is the break point. The first one up here is the break point, and this is our test rock. So we'd throw a test rock without any sweeping. This is where that rock went to. Coming down that path, it came right to this cone at the back. With Corey sweeping to make it curl from halfway down the sheet all the way down to the top of the forefoot, you can see the difference that it can make. Now, Corey is one of the best sweepers in the world. So Corey can do things that none of us in here can do, but it's just proof that you're able to do things like that. This next one is a different.
So just so everybody knows, Phil, the cone at the back of the button there, that was the first one. Is that the?
Yep, that was the
okay.
test.
Yeah.
They will watch it again, just so you can see where the test is, right? So the cone is right where the break point is. That was where the rock started to make the break down the sheet. Corey hits it because you don't really want to start sweeping it until it starts to hit its break. And that's when you can start to sweep to make the stone to curl. And notice his body position. He's up on his tiptoes. He's got all his weight. He's almost trying to get in that broom. If you could ever get it to a 90-degree angle where you could get all of your weight on it, that would obviously be the most effective. But we're trying to get it as close to 90 degrees as we can, because you're getting all the weight that you can onto that broom and through that stone. So I'm not going to stop it because it started over last time, but the next one that we're going to be doing is going to be Andrew, and we had him do it to just sweep with the broom head the normal way, and you can see that that will be just as effective, or that will be effective but not quite as effective. We teach even our athletes, if you don't practice knifing on a regular basis, and you're not able to get as much body weight on it, it's not worth it. It has to be in a perfect spot, just like Corey was doing it. So Andrew here, this is the standard style of sweeping, that he's just what we call pushing to make it curl. And we can see even just normal sweeping, he can still get it to curl because he's taking in that angle from the outside edge of the stone in pushing it to make it to curl. And then the last one is just one more that will show you of the knifing, that it really, just to make sure everyone does believe, because I know there's a lot, when you're within a club, a lot of people are talking, well, that's not doing anything, they're wasting their time, when truly it does have an impact. And granted, we're showing you two of our best sweepers that we have with Ben Richardson here and Corey Drobnick, but and even Andrew, just the traditional way. But you can see how you can just see that rock busting, like it's just way it's turning over, and his body positioning, and he's right over his broom, and you can see how far that he made that curl, basically the same as Corey's. So it's true. And, you know, our athletes are really practicing that on a regular basis. And, you know, I'd encourage anyone at any level to practice sweeping because, you know, even if you're trying to win your 4 o'clock league on Tuesday night and you can become more effective sweeping, I always go back to you're only throwing 2. And if you can make every shot that your skip's throwing, if you can judge it right, and if you can get your body position in to be effective sweeper, go for it. And this is club ice too. I mean, that they're able to do this on. And we've found at last year's men's worlds, in particular on arena ice, you can even do more and get more of a effect on it.
So the point on when you put the brush head the narrow way, the knifing, it's more difficult to get right over top of it and maintain your balance, right? Is that,
Correct.
yeah, which is something for club curlers to consider.
Yeah, I mean, like personally, I would say, you know, as a club curler, I would be taking the traditional style that Andrew did, that we proved has an effect on it, and you're able to know that you're hitting that running surface. Because when you start knifing and if you get it off position, which I see so often, just up in St. Paul, watch tonight. If any of you that are going there, and if athletes start knifing, how easy it is to get out of position. It's just because it's got to be in that perfect outside to the middle to be able to get that rock to curl. So yeah, for sure. Yes. Yep. Exactly. All right. Just one more thing here on sweeping, and I'm going to let this one run, and you'll see this is Corey at the World Championships, and notice how in this particular slide, Corey is sweeping really hard. He comes off and he starts sweeping hard again, and he never gets out of position. He is always right there. And that's something I think as curlers that, you know, we can become better at, is just being in position. Instead of carrying your broom up in the air or not having it nearby or not having it on the ice, you know, as we know on a takeout, it only takes, you know, 10 seconds to come down the ice. And if we're out of position and it takes us 3 seconds to get into position, we're missing out on an opportunity. So just showing that video for everyone to be able to see that always to be staying in position when you're sweeping and to be right by that stone. Yes, we did. And we're able to keep, and definitely keeping it straight was as effective as well. I mean, it was, I don't know if we had the video on it, but I mean, it was your traditional thoughts of you're definitely able to keep the rock straight. This is just another, yeah.
Knifing versus, what was the other technique called? Traditional.
Pushing, we call it pushing.
Unless you practice the knifing, you may not be as effective at it as if you stick with your traditional sweeping.
Correct. I would say, and like I said, even we proved there with Andrews with the traditional sweeping that you can still make the rock curl. So I would suggest that, you know, that is the style for most club curlers to go to.
And did you test it with a 130-pound woman doing it? And what was their effect?
Yeah, we found that it was definitely more challenging for the 130-pound woman that's sweeping to be able to knife and have an effect, where they were having more effect with pushing, just the traditional style. So and part of it is just, as we know, that leverage of being able to get that upper body. And with the knifing in particular, you have to get so much weight on the broom and have that in a perfect position. I wouldn't quote that that's the case all the time, but I would say on a whole, if you took the average, it would, I believe, and I think what we found is that you're better off to be pushing or the traditional way than you would be to knifing. This is just a quick video leading into Mike's session here. This is a sweeping one of what we captured on the biomechanics. Back to the skeleton for Halloween. Yeah. You can't remember what athlete Mike beheaded, but that was.
It's almost parallel to the ice surface, you know, and how much weight we're putting down and creating through our legs and through our upper body. And we'll show a little bit more, what that does with our down arm compared to our up arm and the injuries that we create. So.
I think that was great. Flat back,
yeah.
feet outside the hip line. Well, yeah.
All right.
That's truly accurate.
Just to move along here, Phill, that was great, and great people to work with. I mean, the knowledge they have to help my job, it's tremendous. So just learning a little bit of stuff that's Phill was talking about here and what we get from our national team staff and from our coaches helps my job a lot more. Just give you a little bit of background for myself. Again, my name is Mike Gulenchyn, and then a little bit of my role, and then what resources we have available for our athletes through sports med, through sports performance, and then, in the end, what are some of the common injuries that we're dealing with our athletes. So that's what kind of the rest of this talk will kind of be centered around. My title is basically USA Curling Sports Science Coordinator. It consists of two different roles, sports med and sports performance. Okay, so basically all of that for our national team, I will work with throughout the season, off season. Basically, I've been a certified athletic trainer with the NATA or the National Athletic Trainers Association. I'm licensed in Minnesota and Wisconsin and been 26 years. I was in Central and Western Wisconsin as an athletic trainer. And last 6 seasons been with USA Curling. My job consists of, for sports med, mostly traveling with the team, with our athletes, making sure that when we're on the road, if we're dealing with any injuries, if we're dealing with any type of sickness, illness, situations with COVID over the years. So, but that's a lot of my job for sports med will be consistently on the road. Otherwise, we do deal with athletes on a regular basis if they're in the training house with injuries that develop through the season or off season with sports performance. We are partnered, as I am a contracted position. So basically, I work for TCO, or Twin City Orthopedics, and our resources that are available to our athletes. We have a team physician, Dr. Ryan Cole. He's in the upper right-hand corner. So he's our physician, does a great job with our athletes. If I have questions on the road or if I need to get him in to see somebody, he's willing to do that right away for us. I mean, there's no wait at all with him. Great guy to work with, communicate with. If I have questions about any of our athletes, does a lot of stuff for me for testing too, our athletes that get tested. If there's questions that we have that medications that our athletes are taking or prescribed through physicians, he's a great resource for me. So pass off to him. Along with that, we do have sports medicine, physical therapists that we work with at the training house. We also have a chiropractor, John Graves, who works with the Minnesota Vikings. We also have sports massage and then sports nutrition are part of our resources. Through sports med, Kayla Kovart is in the lower right-hand corner, or left-hand corner, I guess is the way you're looking at it. So, but that's before we headed over to Beijing last year in 2022. She is one of our dietitians that has worked with our athletes. She also works with USOPC on a regular basis, and then also does women's hockey. We also work with Brooke Dummer. She's been doing a lot more with our athletes because of Kayla's role with all the other jobs that she has. So from there, the other position that I have is basically working as sports med. I'm a certified athletic trainer and also a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the NSCA. Been 31 years as a strength coach. And again, 26 was in Central Wisconsin, Western Wisconsin, 6 years with USA Curling. So when looking at sports performance, kind of our breakdown for our national team is we have, 3 women's team, 3 men's teams, mixed doubles, juniors, men's and women's, and then also development athletes. So trying to put programming together for the athletes. Basically, when we're doing that, it's kind of depends on their location. So with our overall location for our athletes, I mean, we have 26 athletes that live in the Twin Cities that train with us on a regular basis. a little bit easier for me to go ahead and set things up, adjust things for them. But we'll also have 10 athletes that are located in the Midwest between Duluth, Madison, Milwaukee, and then also 23 athletes scattered throughout the US. So at points, it makes it a little bit more difficult knowing exactly what they're doing. So basically, we have home programs set up. Some might work out at facilities. It might be a Planet Fitness. It might be a personal trainer in other areas. So along with that, dealing with those coaches that are helping our athletes in different locations too. So, and then what type of equipment those athletes have. I mean, at home, some of them have dumbbells, resistant bands, free weights, cardio. So it might change just depending on, what they have for overall availability for them to use and do their strength programming. Also, consideration is what are their goals? What are their outcomes? How many days a week? Duration of workouts. And then we also use an app called True Coach app. So basically all their programming is done through an app. I will send them out to them on a daily basis. We like to get them input on their loads that they're doing and their frequency, what's going on. Helps me in the future of, what type of loads I can put in for those athletes moving forward. So big thing is that when we look at athletes, they come in, are they getting what they need to? So a lot of our strength and performance stuff is they'll come in, they'll do a bench press, they won't put their weights in, and then they'll come back in and go, what weight did I do again for 8 reps? So it's easier for me to load that for them. Like, okay, we're at 8 reps at 225, at 6 reps, maybe we're down to 245, so it's just depending. So they have an idea where they need to be at moving forward. Just to break down a little bit of our off season, in season, because it kind of changes a little bit for our athletes. Off season, love to see them in there 5 days a week. I know we have a lot of things going on in the summer. It's our off season, time to recover a little bit. So we're kind of looking at 3 to 5 days a week within training facility. Duration is going to be a little bit longer. So it's going to be 90 to maybe 105 minutes. It could vary too, because we do have videos for those remote athletes. It takes them a little bit longer to maybe check out and see exactly what the lift looks like. So it's going to consist about 9 to 12 different lifts during the off season, looking at more strength and cardio, and then overall looking at the reps starting at a point in the season. If it's off season, it might be, high reps of 12. And then as we get closer to the season starting, it might be down to higher loads with less reps. Okay. In season, it's going to be very dependent on the athlete and their travel schedule and what's going on throughout. So basically, we'd like to see them 2 to 3 days a week, but they might be on the road for 18 days or 14 days, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. And they might come back for 2 days and then they're back on the road. So you just have to adjust their training. During the in season, we want to just maintain and improve or work on their cardio, elevate their heart rates. Okay. The main thing, maintaining our strength. So what they gain during the off season, we don't want to lose as much as possible. Lifts are going to decrease. 6 to 8 different lifts. We're mixing a lot more cardio this year with them. So we might do 3 lifts and they're hitting some cardio, coming back with 3 lifts, cardio, finishing up with some core stuff. So components within every training session that we have at the training house is going to begin with some type of warm-up. It's going to be an athletic warm-up. It's going to be a functional movement warm-up, something like that. And then from there, we're going to do some dynamic stretching into some ground-based stretching. And then it's going to be either shoulder or hip prehab stuff. So our major injury, aspects or components that we're kind of dealing with are going to be our hips and our shoulders. And then finish with our strength section and then core and cardio. Now, like I said, during the season, it's a little bit differently, and this is our off-season setup. Our athletes love to do a little bit more cardio in season and less strength stuff. So I've been adjusting that for them throughout. That's going to depend on the person too, and where their location, what's going on. So this is just more of a breakdown of off season. So basically what body parts we're hitting on a regular basis throughout the summer or off season. So Mondays are more leg focused, Tuesday, chest and back, and then we're hitting posterior chain or glutes and hams, shoulders, arms, and then multi-joints. As you can see, as we laid it out, our hard days are going to be Monday and Fridays. So our intensity levels are going to be between 8 and 9, and same on Friday. So they're going to be working hard on those 2 days. Tuesday's a little bit, Wednesday's a little bit hard, not too bad. It's chest and shoulder, or chest and back, and then we have hamstring, posterior. We have some deadlifts in there too. So, but Thursday's more of our recovery day. It's pretty easy days for them to come in. So that's how it's kind of set up. And again, our focus during the off season is strength and power development. Okay, for our athletes. Our overall off season, maybe 10 weeks, depending on if that athlete makes it to the World Championships and they finish up their season May 1. We give them a couple weeks off. From there, they're going to start into their off-season programming. Some of our athletes, other athletes may have 15 weeks, so it's a little bit longer. So we just adjust from there. In season, so basically a little bit different breakdown. We're using our legs all on Monday. And that's going to be dependent on if they came off a hard weekend or they've been on the road for a long period of time. Okay. It may be totally different than that. And I might be just a total recovery day. They might come in and just do our warm ups, go ahead and do some norma techs, get nutrition, get out. Okay. But if they aren't on the road and it's a normal week for them, they'll come in and do leg and posterior chain, chest and back focus, arms. So we kind of switched up the order a little bit. Friday's more of an optional day. So basically, if they come in, they missed the workout, say they missed their chest and back workout, and they want to do it on Friday, we just adjust it for them. And you can see the intensity levels are a little bit different overall. So a little bit harder Monday and Thursday, and the rest of the week's a little bit easier. Okay, so it's about maintenance. Overall focus, strength, maintaining, we talked about that, conditioning component, and recovery. Okay. When developing our programming, we take into a lot of factors, and what that would consist of: feedback from the athletes, feedback from the coaches. Okay. Are we dealing with any type of injury? Talking to sport med, sports nutrition. Is there any aspect that we need to be concerned about for those athletes? And then also what the national team, our staff would look at, our directors would look at, what they're looking at for the upcoming season, what they need from these athletes. So those are all considerations that we look at. We also pull in our fitness testing, our ISIC testing, and I'll go through ISIC testing in a second. And then how do they compare with the rest of the national team? So we also collect the information from wearables. We use Garmin. We use the Venue 2 from Garmin. It gives us some information on their sleep patterns, their loads that they're having. We also collect information from USOPC Athlete 360. They'll do a wellness survey every day. For most of our athletes that, trying to figure out the best option for them, giving survey overload in that if we take off the off season, have them just doing the in season. But we do collect information overall on motivation, fatigue, muscle soreness, mood, and stress from those surveys. It's a quick 10-second survey that they do. We also ask in that survey, do they have any injuries or illnesses that we need to deal with? And then how's their hydration and nutrition for the day before? Okay. We also do surveys for on ice, just kind of collecting information about how many rocks they throw in practice. And were you with a teammate? Were you with a coach? Were you by yourself? What did you focus on in those practices? So a lot of our athletes are practicing on their own. They don't have a coach that's in town unless they're working with Phill. So we want some more information to give back to the coaches on exactly what their athletes are doing. Okay. We also are looking at tracking the number of games, how many days they're on the road. So if you look at a lot of our athletes, October, November, they're on the road quite a bit. So that's going to be a stressor for them. And how does that factor into where they sit in January and February? How fresh are they? So, but these are mostly the components that we look at, and then where do we want them to peak at? Hopefully, most of it's going to be nationals or world championships that we're looking at our athletes to peak at. So these are all the factors that we're going to be dealing with throughout the season. This is one of our athletes just doing some single leg hops upstairs, looking at power overall. But national team testing that we do for our athletes, basically, we're going to do basic tests, sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, vertical jump, box blast, standing broad jump, grip strength, and beep test. So have a lot of information. The trainer before me collected it. I continued with it. So as we go through, there's adjustments that we made. We just threw in the grip strength this year. We'll try to back some other stuff off and start moving things around. But we just have so much information from the years past on a lot of our athletes that it's just going to take time to collect more and more and take other things out. So ISIC testing is basically a standardized international system that is being used. We collect their weight, standing and seated heights. Basically wingspan. We're taking 8 skin fold sites on the body. We're doing girth measurements, 5 sites, and bone breaths. We're trying to make sure that our athletes are getting them 3 times a year. Beginning of the season, we know where they're at. Mid-season, are we losing anything? Have they lost weight? And then at the end of the season, before the off season starts, just kind of give us information that way. So that's the testing that we do. This is just video of some of our athletes. This is a training house too that it's in Eagan, Minnesota. It's part of the Viking Sports Performance Center. So basically, just some of the stuff that we use. That's a 250-pound sled that she's pushing. Some box blasts, lateral box blasts. So we'll do sled pushes forward, sled pushes backwards, working quads, working glutes, working hamstrings. Love the rower for our athletes. That was the first thing when I came in. I talked to Corey Drobnick, what does he do? When I first joined the national team as a staff member, he said basically I use the rower quite a bit. Now it's changed. There's a lot of different things, but that's when he first introduced me that's what they were using. So there's a lot of Kaiser equipment that we use. We don't use this machine anymore. We used to do testing on here to get power overall from a Kaiser equipment. We have an outside door plaza with turf. We do a lot of battle rope stuff for conditioning, explosive power stuff. A lot of balance stuff on the BOSU. So quad strength, very important. ISO holds that we're doing. Here's just a different type of pull-ups that we do. So we have a mixed grip. We have softball pull-ups. So sled pushes. Anybody we know that person? Maybe. Just overall development. I mean, this is good shoulder movement. This is one of our other athletes that has left the program, but overall good strength. We throw a lot of band stuff in here too. So we're doing a deadlift with a glute thrust using power bands, a little bit of on stability surfaces with rounded dumbbells with a plate on the back. So just trying to.
I was doing that this morning, Mike.
Yeah, you got that done? You did all this. Yeah. We use still water stairs quite a bit too. ISO holds, jumping explosion power. This is actually pretty good for us. You'll see some of the stuff that we are doing. Basically, we use a lot of lat tricep work that we use the tank for the rope pulls. And again, a lot of overhead shoulder presses that we're using. Tara with our pull-ups.
Mike, what are for a recreational curler, what 3 or 4 exercises would you say would be most beneficial to performance and avoiding injury?
I think first of all, it'd be the lunge. Basically, we're in that position quite a bit. So if we have strong quads, hamstrings, and glutes, it's going to help us on the ice surface. We use a lot of balancing stuff with that too. Eyes open, eyes closed. That's going to be a little bit different. So one thing would be the lunge. Other thing is a lot of lat work, tricep work. So the sweeping motion, we're using quite a bit of posterior shoulder. So if it's overhead presses that we use, and we'll do combination lifts where it's going to be, maybe a snatch to an overhead press to, or a lunge jump with an overhead press. So just a lot of athletic movements. I think we're done with this, right? So that's basically our sports performance, what we do, what our sports medicine program looks like with TCO, our partnership with them. Now just looking a little bit onto our injury, Phil went through some of the stuff. I have Rich on here just because his shin angle, how much stress we're placing on the knee, the hip, and the ankle itself. in this position. How many times these guys are doing this, or you guys do it on the ice surface? If you look at, I have a hockey background, my hips don't do that. They will never do that, I don't think. But things that we look at, the loads on the slide leg, the amount of stress being on that slide leg is where we see most of our injuries. We're going to see them in the hips, we're going to see them in the knees and the ankles. Okay, the hips, just overall stress, the compression, joint wear, eccentric loads are all there. So that's going to create some issues if we don't take care of them with any type of recovery, stretching, modalities, whatever it might be. Knee, we see quite a few during the season, a lot of repetitive flexion extension of the knee, rotational forces that are being placed on there, especially the medial side. So we end up with a lot of other injuries within the knee, ankle. It's more soft tissue, tightness within the gastrosoleus muscles itself. So those are mostly the common things that we're going to see with the delivery itself. Yes, ma'am.
The ankle one is something that we've been talking about just in common curlers, because over the years, or let's say the last 8 years, we've been watching high performance curlers with that slider foot at such an extreme point out instead of toes pointed forward. And so all of us are sitting and going, that's gotta hurt. And we're just thinking too, over time, is that helpful? I mean, why are we turning our foot so far out versus going straight forward?
Yeah, so that would be more technical for Phill, but for myself as sports performance, the stresses that are being placed on there, yes. So we have an athlete right now that's has that foot turned out so far. They're dealing with a lot of inflammation and posterior knee pain because of it, because of the stress being placed on there. Doc said, you know, realistically, they should be on crutches, but they're just taking some time away from some of the stuff that we're doing on ice, and they're missing a little bit probably this month of the season. Just to take away. But you're right, the stresses that are being placed on there is tremendous. We have, you know, a mix of our athletes will turn foot to keep it straight. So if they can teach it, and I talked to some of our curlers about that because they asked about this athlete, and I kind of just said, you know, the foot position that they're in is going to put those stresses on there, and they were kind of saying that that's some of the teaching that's done.
Since Phil's not here, I like the foot angled like that, and I always compare it to anyone on a gymnast on a balance beam. They never land with their feet straight ahead. They will always land with their feet angled out, and it's a balance issue. And one of the key things in the delivery is balance. And I find that, now, having said that, some people find it very difficult to do that. In fact, some people will toe in. And in my early years of coaching, I would always try and, no matter how adamant they wanted to, their body just seemed to want to go in, I'd try and convert them. Now I don't do that. If they can only go straight ahead, that's fine. Out. But bottom line, I say it's like a gymnast. You just have better balance, and balance is so key to your delivery. So if you can do it, I would suggest you do it.
And I think that when we're talking, I think this individual's more on their toe also, and turning it quite more, a little bit more than most. So I think that's where they ended up having a little bit more issues with it. So for our hip region, so I will deal with a lot of glute tightness on the road. When our athletes are competing 10 days straight, 2 to 3, you know, or 2 at the day of 1 in between. So they end up with a lot of different sorenesses and tightnesses. And one of it is our glutes. Basically, our glutes, the main movements are abduction and extension of the hip. We also get hip flexor tightness, which is caused by the position they're in a flex position. It's just like our hockey guys. They're in a skating stride all the time too. They're going to have tight hip flexors. And then also with the hip joint itself, it's just being worn on. We get with labral tears. We end up with OA or osteoarthritis situations too, from just the positioning they're in. And I'm just pointing these things out that's what I deal with. Is it going to happen to everybody? No. I think there's ways that we can prevent some of this stuff, and that's just the recovery process itself. So knees, I think we see a little bit more knees overall, just because the amount of knee flexion. We end up with quad strains, tightness from the eccentric loads or isometric holds. You're holding that position for a period of time. It's going to create some issues and tightness within that muscle tissue. Come along. Yep. Yeah. You got it. Where we at? Okay. Let me just cruise through this. So patellar tendonitis, meniscal injuries are some of the other injuries that we look at. For the ankle, it's more gastroc, soleus. Can I go back here quickly? Maybe not. I just want to see. This is just some of our exercise that we do for our hips, preventative stuff. So this is one of our large hip circles that we do. We also do some straight leg fire hydrants, which is really hard on the glutes. We'll do a super dog where our chest is down to our thigh right here, doing an extension. Along with that, we also do some band movements. Sorry, wrong way. So we do a lot of glute work with our bands, some simple stuff that you can do. You don't need weights. So we do some, these are called squat jacks. We did some straight leg hip abduction both ways. He also did do some all four position with hip abduction from there. So those are just some of the band exercises that we do. A little bit more, this is more movement stuff that we're doing. So we'll do a 5-step with a vertical jump, 5 steps back. So 5 jumps, 5 steps, just working those glutes. It's more of a warm up for our Mondays that we're doing. Along with that, sweeping, I'm just going to kind of bypass, we're going to shorten this up. I want to just get to a video here. This is interesting. So this is one of our athletes. Look at his left posterior shoulder and tricep. There is so much more muscular development, and that's his down arm on the broom. So his posterior shoulder, the size of that muscle compared to the size on the other side. Huge difference. So we got a lot of imbalances. Not any different than any other sport, but that's things that, you know, we got to be careful and aware of as we go through any type of sports performance stuff. So that was pretty interesting to see. And then these are just some videos that we do for our shoulder prehab stuff. So this is all of our sweeping injury stuff that we deal with. We want to make sure we prevent with some of our band stuff that we do. So we do some of, you know,